Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Black Book Show virtual book tour, September 2023. I am the host of the Black Book Show, Makonnen Sankofa. As well as being the host of the Black Book Show, I am also the author of the books Experiences of Living Across Africa, which is my latest book that was released on the 10th of September. How to Market and Sell Your Book, A Guide for Beginners. The Rise of Rastafari, Resistance, Redemption, and Repatriation. And Life in Gambia, the Smiling Coast of Africa. Now, in case you haven't watched the Black Book Show before, the Black Book Show is a platform that happens once a month, the virtual book tour, and a variety of authors of African heritage talk about the books that they've written. It features books of authors who have written books on a variety of different genres and people that are at different stages of their journey. So some people on the platform have written several books. Some people have just written one book. Some people, are just about to release a book, as well as, authors. Sometimes, occasionally, you do have publishers. We have booksellers. Sister Legit from the Nubian Nick Gist book. She's normally one of the booksellers who normally speaks during the Black Book Show, but she's absent on this particular show. But people that are in the book industry. So it is an international platform. So, I have all people that come onto the platform. Some of them are authors in Europe, some are in USA, some are in Africa, the Caribbean. I've had authors in Australia, different parts of the world, but all are authors of African heritage because the platform is about promoting books that are written by authors of African heritage. Right, I'm now going to go to the first speaker on this episode of the Black Book Show. And the first speaker is Barbara. So Barbara, what I would like you to do is first, please give a brief introduction to who you are and state, where you're joining us from, and then tell us all about the book that you've written, please.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Or evening, depending on where we are. I love this fact that we're all over the place like this. I am not very computer savvy, so I hope, is everybody getting me full face? Because I just see you now, McKinnon, with the Black Book Show.
Yeah, we can see you.
All right, very good. So my name is pronounced Barbara Nyaliemaa Mosima. And that is primarily, my husband is from West Africa, from Sierra Leone, and he speaks the Mende tribe. And the language, of course, is Creole, but Nyaliemaa means my heart. So I thought that would be a great pen name for me. So now let's get right into it. Why Have Dog and Bark is the name of my book. I actually, first of all, I'm a graduate of Howard University's theater department. I am an actress, comedian, playwright, and all things theater. That's straight out the ballpark. So let me just try to sit here and relax and talk. Sometime I have to use my oxygen. And so we can begin this. Why Have Dog and Bark? That was a book I have written, and it is about, can you see this well? Think of that. Why Have Dog and Bark? This is a book about an African American young woman navigating her way through Washington, D.C., and how she goes through dysfunctional relationships and how she gets through all the trials and tribulations that come with a young woman coming into her own. It is it's humorous, it's insightful, it will make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and it's definitely gonna make you want to cuss out somebody. So get ready. And I just wanted to read the back cover to you so that you would know a little bit more about the book, and then we can get into a little bit more about talking about how I came about writing Why Have Dog and Bark. All right. Josie is a young, voluptuous woman living in Washington, D.C. She is smart, witty, and creative. She also dreams of starting her own satirical greeting card company, but struggles with low self-esteem. Her ex, Quill, a charismatic man from the Caribbean, is sensual as hell. But he's also selfish, has no ability to commit to a real relationship, and has more baggage than a woman packing like she's never coming back. Josie figures moving to a city that embraces diversity overload would be an exciting change from her small town upbringing. But life continues to be complicated. First, Josie rebounds into the arms of Chino, a Cuban national who wants a green card and whose manipulative ways are camouflaged with the pretense of love. Then, when Josie becomes pregnant, she hopes it will change their relationship for the better and help her forget Quill. But unexpected events shake her to the core. Will Josie become a victim of her upbringing or a survivor of her current environment? And that's it in a nutshell in the back cover. So hopefully it will make people intrigued enough to want to know a little bit more about Josie. So why I chose the title. Why I chose the title. Well, being in Washington, D.C., I used to work at the World Bank, full of international people, full of international. I mean, if I wanted to travel the world, my first stop was at the right place, being an admin secretary, because let me tell you, I worked from every nationality and learned every culture, all their idiosyncrasies and things that they had to express. But one of the groups I connected with very well were a lot of Caribbean sisters. Oh man, I learned how to do a lot of recipes from them and just straight out things, how they act. And when you are listening to a Caribbean woman telling another Caribbean sister and telling you, they put it in that accent that you either gonna feel stupid or you're gonna get it right. And when you tell somebody and they're hearing you in a bad relationship, and you're like, what are you doing with that mom for? You think there's not another one coming and not enough bus? What wrong with you? There's more fish to fry, girl. The mom ain't treating you right. So why you staying with him? Why dog and bark? Let that mama go. So apologies to all the Caribbean friends out there who I may have not butchered this accent. But the point of it is, why have dog and bark is there's too much dysfunctional relationships. There's too much dysfunctional relationships going on out there. And women seem to keep making the same mistake. Why is that? Why do we keep doing it? And why don't we stop it? How does it begin? There has to be a way why this is, and why do we keep doing it? Next month, October, is what we recognize as Domestic Violence Month. And I'm really on a path and a commitment to get why have dog and bark to become a household word. I mean, really, if and it comes from, the title is really taken from like the idiom, like I said, the Caribbean idiom, but more so it's like, so you understand it if people don't get that. If you have a dog in your life and somebody is attacking the house and you run for cover to hide under the bed, and when you crawl under the bed, the dog is already there. You're meeting the dog under the bed. Well, what do you need them for? If they're not going to be around to help anyone in any type of relationship, if they're not going to be there to for you all both to grow together and help each other, then the question is, what makes you stay in it? And that is why the title is called Why Have Dog and Bark? But let's face it, where exactly does dysfunction start? In childhood and grow. You don't just grow up, step into adulthood, fall in love, and you just choose the wrong person. You've had to have some type of experience from long ago, some type of base that you saw. What happened? What was this all about? And I think that as we grow and we try to get away from some of those things, it follows us in adulthood, and we make these kind of crazy choices. So this book is to help empower you, empower women, empower a friend, tell a non-friend. This is the type of behavior I want to stop. But I'm trying to craft the story of Josie and her two best friends. One is from Ireland. And so anyone listening in Ireland, how are you? How you doing? And one is a Jordanian woman. She's actually a mixed race, half Jordanian and half white. And these three characters are thick as thieves, and they are learning how to navigate their lives and deal with so much of the differences of the lives in Washington, D.C. So what I really wanted to do with you all today is I'm just going to read you the prologue and let you know what the book is about. And once again, the objective is to entice everyone out there to want to say, oh, I need to stop what I'm doing. I need to go get this book now. So give me a moment and I'll read the prologue and then finish up my tour with you. Josie. Josie turned on the television and settled onto an oversized and sunken beanbag chair. This week, the first Black woman's new syndicated daytime talk show to air was hosted by a woman named Oprah Winfrey. Josie and all her friends in the neighborhood couldn't stop talking about it. With her eyes glued to the TV, she admired this shapely, full-figured woman, and she had an unbelievable head of hair. That was when her mother and her mother friends raised the question of whether she was wearing a wig. Josie immediately called Bailey, her BFF next door. When Bailey answered, she drove in with a barrage of questions. Girl, what you doing? You watching the talk show? Do you think all that hair is her own? You always doing somebody's head, so you should know. You could be a TV hairdresser for her one day. Bailey cut her off. Josie, I can see she uses good hair products. Look at how it bounces when she walks up the stairs to her audience. Either that or she has someone on her staff who knows how to use a straightening comb, like my mama. Then she heard Bailey say to her cousin, girl, sit your butt still before I snatch you bald. Bailey huffed. Look, Josie, I got to finish braiding my cousin's hair before her mama picks her up. I ain't even halfway done trying to do hair and watch this show. That's cool, girl, Josie said, only partially listening. I want to finish watching it anyway. I'll see you on the front porch after dinner. She hung up the phone. Aside from everyone being fixated on Oprah's mane, this remarkable new talk show introduced a word Josie had never heard. The term dysfunctional glided out of her mouth. She enunciated every syllable and paused at the right moment to ensure everyone watching received her dramatic delivery. Today, we'll talk about dysfunctional upbringings and relationships. You might feel you're walking carefully through a china shop. If you touch anything and it breaks, all hell will break loose. She paused and looked right into the TV camera. Dysfunction. How does it start? Why does it exist? And more importantly, how do you get out of it? We'll be back in a moment. Josie blew a soft breath between her lips and thought, whew, what a word. Oprah's description encapsulated every relationship she had ever known or witnessed in her adolescent world. It was one hot mess, but no one in her neighborhood had ever mentioned that word before. She hadn't heard her mother use it or any of her mother's friends, and absolutely none of her friends, siblings, or cousins ever said it. Everyone in her neighborhood went along to get along, period. So there was no need for the strange term to find its way onto her block and shift everyone's consciousness towards a different way of thinking. Besides, the foul language she constantly heard presented a brick wall blockade for her to walk away from that word's intrusion and eagerly step into adulthood without a second thought of what it might mean. That is, until she had to grapple with it as a full-fledged adult. And it all began with Miss Lacey's warning. So there you have it. That is the prologue on Why Have Dog and Bark. It is a story, as I said, that I hope will make you want to read it. It will make you want to go get it out. It will make you want to care about Josie. You might see yourself as Josie or another person or someone you need to get this message to. I am going to close out now, but to let you know, I'm also passionate about it. I have, if you can see this, it is a mug that has Why Have Dog and Bark? Because it needs to be on somebody's desk at work so that they know when somebody's coming to give them some nonsense and they ain't trying to hear it, all they do is say, check the mug. And again, with spreading the word, you can find all of this on my website, which I am going to give you the information to. The t-shirt that says, Why Have Dog and Bark? And one of my all-time favorites are my satirical greeting cards here, because Josie wants to be a satirical greeting card person. And so she starts a business. And just to share with you quickly, one of my favorite cards here, you'll see two sisters walking in a church, and it's not all just about, it's all about poking fun, the relationships, lives, and everything. So here you have two sisters walking through church looking like they're getting ready to leave. And one says on the front cover here, what are you going to give up for Lent? And you see one is kind of a full-figured woman and one's a little slender. And the other one says to her, just simply, lettuce. That's what I'm giving up for Lent, is lettuce. So these are funny cards that you can get on the website, which is, let me tell you, my website is B for Barbara, N for no, and my last name, Mosima. B-N Mosima at, bnmosima.com. bnmosima.com. And you can certainly find Why Have Dog and Bark on Amazon. Definitely Amazon.com. Let's see if let me check my notes that I got everything here. Yes. So again, thank you for listening to me, McKenna. Thank you for just throwing me in the deep end of the water first. I thought I was going to kick back, let me see how everybody groove in here. But it was my moment, so I took the shot. So thank you, sir. Thank you, family. I look forward to hearing the other artists as I sit here and can relax and drink a cup of tea. I'll see you around the pages, as I always close out with everything. Thank you once again.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Barbara. And please put your links as well in the Zoom chat there's someone who's left a message. I'm just reading it now. Where can we buy it? So where can we buy the book? So yeah,
At
just
Amazon,
please put
yes. Okay.
the link in the Zoom chat. I
Okay.
would just like to take this moment and say, welcome those who have joined. I know more people have joined, and more people will be joining throughout the show. Rise up the people as well that are listening and watching via the Facebook. Denise James is the next author now that will be speaking. Denise has featured on the Black Book Show previously, the virtual book tour, as well as the Black Book Show radio show and podcast. So welcome again, Denise James, onto the platform. Please start by, introducing yourself to those who are not, familiar with you. Introducing yourself, tell us where you're based, and then tell us, all about the book that you've written.
Thank you, Makonnen. Thanks for having me again. Hello, everybody. Greetings, wherever you are in the world. My name is Denise. Yes, I've been on the show before. I'm coming at you from England, London, in a place called Hackney. And I'm here to talk about my book, Back to Love. Okay, so to start things off, I'm just going to read the back so you'll get a flavor of the whole book. So like I said, it's called Back to Love. Back to Love is an autobiography that tells the story of a teenager's decision to have a child and the direction that decision swiftly takes her. A journey of emotional healing and self-rediscovery. The text reads like a detective story, an inner world detective story, as she begins to uncover and take more seriously the past experiences that had truly shaped her. Back to Love is therefore a triumph over adversity story, a simple yet extraordinary and deeply felt life story that pays homage and testimony to how past wrongs could be righted, and how basic human and children rights and dreams can be recovered and made in this time possible. The main plot of the story rests on the young woman's decision to have a child, which also amounts to a decision for change, and all that came to consequently entail. The decision to change, as well as its processes, also tells its own story. So that's Back to Love. So Back to Love was published, my first publication, in 2021. I do have a second book. I'm calling it a series, Back to Love series, but that's for another show. But this is the first book, Back to Love. Okay, so that story I talk about, the young woman, that's me. I'm 58, I'm a grandmother of 5, and I have 2 sons. Amongst other things, I am a psychotherapist. I've been for 37 years, as well as a mentor and an inspiration life coach and a clinical supervisor for therapists. Okay, so that's who I am today. The book is about my journey to where I am today, a healing journey. So how did I become these things? Okay, it's never too late to begin anew. So I go back in time. At 18 years old, I made a decision to have a child. At that time, it didn't feel like my life was going anywhere, and I didn't have the guidance of any adults around me guiding me and helping me to find my way in life and decide what I would do and become when I left school. So I thought I'd have a child. That decision took me on a journey, and that decision also, to my mind, gave my life a new beginning, a new start, and a promise I made to my child that this would be his best start. Forward 3 years later, I'm in a relationship that is become quite toxic. the promise I made to my son is, you know, looking like a shattered dream. And that the reason for bringing him into the world was my new start and his best of starts. So when things began to break down, you know, I knew I had to get out the relationship because I didn't bring him in the world to repeat history. So during that time as well, I began to have what was then termed a nervous breakdown. At the time, I had an eating disorder. Like I said, I was in a not very healthy relationship with his father. You know, my mental apparatus began to break down. I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't sleep. You know, every night in my dreams, I was having dreams about him treating me worse than he was actually treating me when I was awake. It was almost like my soul was saying to me, get out, you know, this can't work, it's not healthy. So I took myself to the doctors, and that's when the doctor said, you know, after asking me a line of questions, that I was having a nervous breakdown and there was depression. And, you know, even though it was hard to go to the doctors, when I left, I felt a sense of jubilation and validation because I felt something was wrong. I grew up knowing that feeling as a child that this isn't how life is supposed to be. You know, something wasn't quite right. But not even having anybody around to support and guide me and even come and ask me what's wrong. Feeling very alone in the world. So as soon as the doctor said that, I was in the library because I loved to read at the time, but the subjects I started to read changed. I was looking into mental health, depression, eating disorders. Yeah, and for me, even though it was termed a nervous breakdown, I saw that as my spiritual breakthrough because it led me to healing. Yeah, so not too long after, the doctor prescribed antidepressants, something to help me sleep. I took that for about a week, but felt that, well, they said you had to take it for about 2 weeks for you to feel the benefit, but I just felt that I couldn't rely on tablets to heal me, you know, to change things. And as Providence would have it, I came across an article in a woman's magazine, and it was about eating disorders. I had bulimia at the time. And at the end of the article, there was a place listed where you can go for help. I didn't even know the thing I'd done with food had a name. I just thought I was just doing something that was very shameful. I didn't understand why I was doing it, but somehow I was doing it because it helped in some kind of ways. So I called up, and there began my healing journey in therapy. During the course of that eating disorders group, I discovered that I'd experienced childhood trauma. I mean, Barbara was talking about where does these, you know, difficult and painful relationships root from, and it's very oftentimes childhood trauma. You know, when you're in it, you think it's normal. You think it's normal as a child. So I discovered, you know, there was, I ticked all the boxes when it came to trauma. You know, there was abandonment, there was sexual abuse, there was emotional abuse, there was neglect, you know, a whole host of things. And it was no surprise that I found myself in that kind of relationship, becoming a mother quite early and having a nervous breakdown. I began to learn and discover all these things. And it was during that time that I said, you know, when I experienced the benefit of just having people to listen and hear you, and for you to hear yourself speak and to begin to connect the dots, you know, it was just so healing. And, you know, when I was in the grips of the eating disorder, I didn't think I'd be able to shake it. But within a short period of time, I wasn't, you know, throwing up anymore. And that was quite a thing because eating disorders is really hard to shake. So that was the decision I made to become a therapist. So I put myself back into education with my 3-year-old. To me, I didn't see having a child as holding me back. You know, having a child could help set people straight sometimes, and that's what it done in my life. So I went back into higher education because I know I could have done better, you know, given the chance. And that's where I trained to become a therapist, and I learned much more things about myself and about, you know, mental health and well-being. Just to say a thing about trauma, because it's really important. I wrote this book because I'm a Black woman, so I'm talking about my healing coming from that community. And I talk about my healing, not just psychologically, but also racially, because that was part of the trauma. Growing up in the 70s, you know, there's a lot of racism over in England as well, you know, where by the time a child's 3, a Black child, you know, I don't know if you've heard of the white black doll experiment, and it still applies today. By the time a child is 3-year-old, you tell a Black child and a white child choose the bad doll, and they're going to choose the Black child. Choose a good doll, they're going to choose the white child. That's how deep the wound is. So my healing also entailed a racial recovery. I went and I found out about our people, you know, and the fact that, you know, we didn't just enter the world stage in slavery, you know, as they teach us in school. You know, even in school, when they introduced slavery, I was, 11, and they were trying to approach it like it was economically viable. That even then, that sounded, excuse the French, that sounded like crap to me. But this is how the negative messages and the trauma gets reinforced and reinforced. So my healing, which I cover in the book, is also racial. I had to go back and do my own independent investigation of the truth. I had to go back and find out about our people, who, by the way, are founding mothers and fathers of civilization. Yeah, I'm very passionate on these subjects because, yeah, we're still living in a time where we're not even covering the subject of history properly in education, and it's called education. Anyway, yeah, but I really want to also address the community as well, because we're also still struggling to understand what trauma is and how to work with mental illness or mental ill health. There's a lot of shame attached to it, and it shouldn't be, because just like, you know, we go to the doctors, we get diagnoses, we get help for physical ill health, and there's no shame attached to that. Somehow when it comes to psychological, there is. And somehow when it comes to psychological, because it's not visible like a physical wound, we tend to overlook it. But believe trauma, the impacts of trauma is addictions, it's domestic violence, it's getting into relationships where you're treated like rubbish because you don't know better, it feels familiar. It could be prostitution, it's low academic achievement, it's, you know, there's a relationship, there's a study called Adverse Childhood Experiences, there's a relationship between childhood trauma and other adverse experiences, whether it's a parent with mental health, a parent in prison, addictions in the house. There's a whole list that it also impacts not just psychological but physically. There's a correlation between that and diabetes, high blood pressure, you know, obesity, cancer, the list goes on. There is a relationship between the past and the present and well-being, and we need to take that seriously, and that should be part of our recovery as a people, not just social injustice, but what we need to be doing in a community. The first environment is the childhood. It needs to be healthy so that we can raise healthy children. Frederick Douglass says, let me find the quote here. Excuse me. Frederick Douglass says, I'll try and remember it. He said it's easier to raise healthy children than it is to repair broken men. Yes, it's easier. Yeah, but as my story shows, it's not impossible to heal broken men. You know, therapy is one way. You know, obviously the ideal is to raise strong children, but if you've been through childhood trauma as an adult, and if you know anybody as a child who's going through it, I really recommend this book, because this tells my healing story through the group therapies and individual therapy I went through as well over the years, because I had to keep going back because I experienced a lot of trauma. So I had to keep going back whenever I found myself needing that bit more help, that bit more therapy. There's no shame in going for help. But like I was saying, just because the psychological wounds, you can't see it directly, you can just see the impacts. It's just as real and just as impacting. So yeah, that's what Back to Love is about. And it's not just going back to, it's not just that, when I say love, I'm not talking about a wishy-washy romantic love. It's about a love where you decide to heal, and you decide to live in your truth, and follow what your heart dictates, and just shine. It's about standing for something. When you've healed, it's about then turning around and helping somebody else, and it's about standing and living and even dying for something. And as we move through these times, I don't think it's the end of time. I think it's the end of a Babylon system that has to get overthrown because it's not correct and it's unjust. It's time for that old order. It's crumbling. As we move forward in these times, we have to get together and heal in the personal and in the collective. According to my watch, I've done 15 minutes. So yeah, so I'll just end by saying that you can buy Back to Love at all book-selling outlets worldwide. And I'm just copying and pasting all my links right here. It's not letting me, but I'll do so as we move through the rest of the evening. But I say now, my website is innersideout.net. That's innersideout.net, where you'll read more about my books. I've got excerpts on my website as well, but you'll also learn about me as a psychotherapist and how I work, as well as other books I've written. And also you'll get access to my social media platforms. My email address is lowercase unstillIrise9@outlook.com. And my work telephone number is 07504-891-108. And like I said, as we move through the evening, I'll go back and copy and paste all my links here, and the book link especially. Gosh, 15 minutes goes so quick. But thank you for listening, and I hope I've gotten a message and a word across today.
Okay, thank you very much. So that was Denise James. She's going to put her details in the Zoom chat. So we're now going to go on to the next author, which is Sharon Austin. Sharon has featured on the Black Book Show virtual book tour previously. She's also been on the Black Books radio show and podcast. So Sharon, please come on, tell us, where you're based, a brief introduction about yourself, and then tell us all about the book you're going to speak about on this episode of the Black Book Show virtual book tour.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you again for hosting me again on the show, Makonnen. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I'll also be back next month for another book that I co-authored with some other people. My name is Sharon Austin, and I'll put all my information, my contact, my email, my website, and information about my book in the chat in a minute. But again, thank you so much, Denise, and also thank you, Barbara, for those two excellent books. And I've already added them to my list. Each time I'm here, I always end up buying like every book that everybody promotes. But again, I'm Sharon Austin. I live in Florida. I'm a professor of political science at the University of Florida, and I've been here since 2001. And the book that I'll be talking about today, I can go ahead and even just share my screen for a minute and let you look at it.
Oh, Sharon, you've just gone on mute. If you just unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is the book that I'll be talking about today, Political Black Girl Magic, the Elections and Governance of Black Female Mayors because in American cities in recent years, there have been a number of Black women who've been elected as mayors of large and small cities, but especially of larger cities. And this is the cover of the book, and this is the former mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. And so I'll just talk a little bit about what the title means, and just, I know I only have 15 minutes, but this is the way, the title of the book, and this is what it looks like. And I wanted to go ahead and show you that. But I want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about the book, and I'll put my information, I'll go ahead and do that now before I forget, in the chat. I mostly teach courses at the University of Florida that deal with African-American politics and minority politics. And I also do a lot of teaching and research in the areas of urban politics. And I also specialize in Black women's civil rights and Black women's politics. And so this tells you a little bit about me, my email address, the link to the book, the title of the book, and it can also be found on Amazon. So I just want to just read a little bit from the beginning of the book to give you an idea of what the theme of it is about. In Political Black Girl Magic, the Elections and Governance of Black Female Mayors, the authors and I examine the Black girl magic of African-American political women who have used their intellect, charisma, and talent to attain their city's highest office. In 2013, Kashawn Thompson tweeted hashtag Black Girls Are Magic, which was later shortened to hashtag Black Girl Magic, to discuss the achievements of African-American women. The term originated because of her desire to combat the negative images of Black women and highlight their contributions. In addition, it celebrates the manner in which Black women overcome adversity and succeed in all aspects of American life. After 2013, the hashtag Black Girl Magic term became more popular and soon was used by many others. Originally, it was associated with popular culture, for instance, celebrating the achievements of Black female actors, athletes, and singers. Well, more recently, scholarly analyses have used the term to refer to Black women's political accomplishments. So that gives you an idea of what the book is about. It's just about Black women's political accomplishments, the way that they ran for mayor of their cities, the way that they were able to win, some of the challenges that they faced, especially with racism and sexism, and how they were able to govern, the expectations of them. Most of them were the first Black mayor or the first female mayor, or maybe the first Black female mayor of their cities. And so that's basically the overall theme of it. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more about me and why I wrote the book. I wrote it because I have always had an interest in Black women's politics, but I remember being in graduate school at the University of Tennessee, because I'm originally from the city of Memphis, and having professors as the only Black female student in my program, and the only Black student as well in my program, having professors tell me when I wanted to write papers about Black politics, or just, women's politics, but especially Black women's politics. This was back in the early 1990s, and being discouraged from writing about those things by professors who basically were racist and who were saying that, oh, that has no value. Nobody wants to learn about this. That's not really political science. And they didn't want to hear about politics or civil rights when it pertained to Black people. So that in later years, after I became a professor, and now as a full professor who can pretty much do whatever I want at this stage in my career, it feels good to be able to write about Black women and the achievements of Black women in politics, and write about people that so many people have never even heard of. Now, when you think about American politics, you think of Kamala Harris, who is the Vice President of the United States, but there were so many Black women before her who are running for offices that most of my students and even just most of my friends have never heard of. So it feels good to be able to educate people about this. And the ironic thing also, if you know anything about politics in the state where I live here in Florida, and our governor, Ron DeSantis, they're doing a lot of book banning in our state. And that's happening all over the nation, that books are being banned because of the different theories that they use, like critical race theory. This book that I've written uses intersectionality as a theory, as a way to analyze these women's experiences. And with that theory, it talks about the fact that these are women, because they're Black women, they've experienced racism and sexism and also discrimination, because many of them are from poor backgrounds because of their class. And it's ironic that I've written it because this is possibly a book that could be banned here in Florida, because intersectionality is one of the theories that people really object to. They don't want to hear a Black woman talk about the fact that when she was running for office or in any aspect of life, that she's had to deal with racism and sexism and other types of isms because she's a Black woman. So and that's also another reason why I was able to write it. I wanted to write it is because at this point in my career, I can do whatever I want. I mean, they still can come after you and ban your book. And if you want to ban it, go ahead and ban it. But you'll be banning something in which I'm basically just speaking truth to power, because that's what we all do in the work that we do. So I just wanted to say that really quickly. But I want to talk a little bit about the findings that I had as far as the racism that these women have dealt with, which isn't surprising that, you know, as Black women that they dealt with racism. But the ironic thing is, in many situations, if you really look at the support that they've received, they've gotten more support from white men than white women. And in practically every situation, these are women who receive more votes from white men than white women, even though they themselves are women. And then also some of the criticism that they've received, a lot of that criticism has come from the Black community. And I think maybe that's because when a Black person is in political office, the expectations are so high. And in many cases, these were the first Black mayors of their cities, first Black women mayors. And so people in the Black community have not really shied away from criticizing them for the work that they've done. They've been very critical of them. And one of the things also that I noticed that I found really interesting is that all of the women who lost, who weren't reelected, for example, Lori Lightfoot of Chicago's on the cover. She only served one term and she recently was defeated when running for reelection. They were all defeated by men. And they also were all defeated by men who talked about law and order and who in some way insinuated that these women were soft on crime, that the crime situation was way out of hand. And maybe that even had something to do with their gender. Maybe there's a perception that women just are soft on crime. That was also something that I found interesting. These women also had to deal with unforeseen circumstances like COVID, which is when I was writing the book during the height of the pandemic. And these were women who were all in office during the COVID pandemic, and they had to deal with having these shutdowns in their cities. Some of them represent cities that are already cities that are struggling financially, and they had to shut everything down. So they had to find a way to cope with that. And then also there was, I call it the Trump factor. These were women, many of them, and I'll tell you what cities I looked at in a minute, but mostly all of these women had some type of conflict with former President Trump. And some of them in particular, like Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C., there's a chapter on her, and she had a lot of battles with President Trump. So did Lori Lightfoot of Chicago, and so did Keisha Lance Bottoms, former mayor of Atlanta. And so that was also an unforeseen circumstance that the President of the United States has an issue with you. If you know anything about American politics, President Trump has had an issue with a lot of Black women, not just political women, but Black women generally. So they had to deal with issues like that. So the cities that I'm looking at in the book are the cities of Chicago, Flint, Michigan, and Pontiac, Michigan, Atlanta, Fontana, California, which has the only Black female Republican mayor, woman by the name of Aquanetta Warren, Compton, California, and San Francisco, California. Los Angeles recently elected a Black female mayor, but I wasn't able to include Karen Bass because I had already written the book before she was elected. But we're already looking at a second edition. This is a book that is an edited book, and each of the chapters were written by different people. I wrote some of the chapters, and then other people wrote others. Also, Baltimore has had 3 Black female mayors. I mentioned Washington, D.C. Has currently Muriel Bowser as their mayor, and before her, they had Sharon Pratt, who was Sharon Pratt Kelly when she was serving as mayor. And then I looked at some other cities as well. Other chapters look at the mayors of the cities of Charlotte, North Carolina, former Mayor Lovely Warren of Rochester, New York, Black female mayors in the Mississippi Delta. Also, there is a chapter on Black female mayors in Louisiana. And finally, there's a chapter on Black female mayors in Florida. And so I just want to, in the time that I have left, just talk a little bit about just some of the things that we write about that these women have had to deal with. Like, for example, Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, crime is way out of control. But if you know anything about politics or just the city of Chicago, crime has always been out of control in the city of Chicago. But that was something that really, I think, resulted in her losing her reelection, being more so than anything else, is the fact that there was such a problem with crime and it got so much attention from the media. But there were other issues with her, with city council members and other issues as well. So that was something that she had to deal with. I guess primarily the main thing was crime and also policing as well. As a matter of fact, a lot of these women have dealt with issues, well-publicized issues of police brutality in their cities. I have a chapter on Louisiana in which I talk about Baton Rouge. Sharon Weston Broom and Philando Castile was an African-American man who was murdered by the police. So policing issues have been major issues for these women. The former mayor of Compton, California, a woman by the name of Aja Brown, was even stopped by the police. She and her husband were in the car with her young children, and the police didn't know that she was the mayor. And they pulled her over and told them to get out of the car, and they were going to search the car. So she also herself has personally dealt with policing issues. In the city of Flint, there's a chapter on Black female mayors in Michigan. Karen Weaver only served for one term before she was defeated for her when she was running for re-election. She was mayor of Flint during the height of the water crisis. And so she had to deal with, if you know anything about what was happening with the water crisis in Flint, they changed the water source to I think from the Detroit River to the Flint, I'm forgetting what it was, but they changed the water source and the water was contaminated and a lot of people ended up getting really, really sick. This is a crisis that still has yet to be completely resolved, but Karen Weaver was the mayor and she came in right after the water crisis had happened. And it already was a problem even before she became mayor, but she was the mayor during the height of the crisis. And as a result of that, people really blamed her for something that had already been a big problem. And even there's a quote in the book in which I talk about a comment that she made when she was giving a speech. And she said, quote unquote, they want to let this little girl come in and clean it up. Because she felt that the water crisis was already going on, but yet she took the brunt of the blame for it. And then also one of the things, I know I'm running out of time, I think I only have 1 minute left, but I do want to mention something about the mayor of Fontana, Aquanetta Warren. Fontana is near Los Angeles and it's also near Compton. It's a predominantly white, affluent city. She is a conservative Republican Trump supporter, and she has served as mayor for quite some time now. And also I have information in the chapter on her about other Black female Republican mayors in the book. So, I know I'm almost pretty much out of time, but I just wanted to point out that I think that this is an academic book that, of course, that people can use in their classes, but it also is a book that I think you'll just enjoy reading about the experiences of these women, because regardless of whether you're really heavily into politics or not, I think we can all kind of relate to some of the things that these women are dealing with, because just even looking at, the people who are here today, many of us are Black women, and we probably have all, regardless of what walk of life you've traveled, we all have dealt with certain things because of our race and gender. And so I just wanted to point out that I think that even if it's not a heavily academic book, it's something that I think is educating you on a topic, but it also is enjoyable just reading about what these women overcame and their backgrounds and how many of them, like London Breed, was raised in poverty. She's raised in the projects, and now she's the mayor of San Francisco. So I'll go ahead and just stop there because I think I'm pretty much out of time, but it's a very interesting book. I'd be saying that even if I hadn't written it, but it's a really interesting book, and I hope you all will at least consider getting it and also will enjoy reading it. And that 15 minutes does go by real fast.
Sharon, can you mention where the book's available to be purchased from?
Yeah, I just put it in the link. It's available for purchase on Amazon also. I just put the link from the publisher, which was Temple University Press, but it also is available even if you just do a Google search of the title. You can find several places online, but primarily, I guess the easiest way to purchase is, and I'll put this in the chat, is on Amazon.
And just mention the title of the book one more time.
Okay, it is entitled Political Black Girl Magic, The Elections and Governance of Black Female Mayors. And I'm putting the title and the Amazon link in the chat.
Okay, thank you. That is Sharon Austin, and she will be back on the Black Book Show next month in October. Right, let me go on to the next speaker on the Black Book Show this episode. It is Betty. So Betty, if you'd like to come on, please start by giving a brief introduction into who you are, tell us where you're based, and then go on to talk about the book that you have written, please.
Good evening, everyone from United Kingdom, SS. My name is Betty Yinka Adejuno-Popoola. I'm the author of this book, My Skin, My Beauty. It's a personal story of my life. So my story encapsulates my journey and battle with acne on my face. I'm going to just read an extract of the book. When you walk up to a stranger, what do you first notice? The color of their eyes, their smile, their hair, their face? I believe it would more likely be their face and its peculiar features. I remember when people started appearing on my face as a teenager. Initially, it seemed normal, as it would for any other teenage girl. But after a while, it became severe and noticeable. What made it worse for me was the fact that there were bumps all over my face, the most visible part of my body. I couldn't have hidden it from the world. I would have been able to hide it with clothes or shoes if it were anywhere else on my body. When I meet somebody for the first time, they see my face, remember it, and use it to identify me next time. My face distinguishes me. To me, those bumps and pimples, symptoms of acne, were a disfigurement, and it affected me severely. Over the years, I suffered emotional, mental, physical agony. I tried all sorts of things and received all sorts of advice from other people, from what seemed sensible to the completely absurd. My mother had gone through it herself. She encouraged me by sharing her past experiences with acne and giving me advice. Many people around me at that time also confirmed that the acne would disappear eventually. It was good to know that it had happened to other people before and that it was just a phase that would pass. So I got on with my life, expecting that it would clear away after having my first child. It didn't get better. Instead, it got worse. Before I delivered my second child, somebody advised me to rub the blood that comes out of my body when it's born on my face. I took this advice because the person had seen it work on someone else's face. It appeared to work at first, as I could see that the acne cleared a bit, but it came back after a while. When I had my last child, I took him to see the health visitor a few months after his birth. As soon as I settled down, the health visitor told me to put my son down. She said she did not have any concern about my baby. Her main concern was my face. She said my baby looked healthy and happy, and his skin looked beautiful, smooth, spotless, and flawless. That day, the focus shifted to me from my baby. It was so bad. So this is what I was dealing with many years ago. So My Skin, My Beauty is about my findings on acne, especially the causes of acne and the formation of acne. Knowing your skin type. I wrote about the essentiality of knowing your skin type. There are different skin types. I believe as an acne sufferer, it is indispensable that you know your skin type so that you can look after it properly. If you don't know your skin type that you are working with, you may end up causing more harm or wasting money on products that don't work. How acne affected my whole life. One thing that you will read in this book is how acne affected me in all ramifications of life, such as physically, genetically, psychologically, emotionally, nutritionally, hormonally, and socially. I'll just read a paragraph detailing what I've just mentioned. I started having pimples in my teenage years. As time went by, pimples, spots, and scars covered my entire face, and not even makeup could conceal it. I thought it would clear up once I entered my 20s, but guess what? It didn't. The condition progressed from very mild to extremely severe. Till I brought it under control, acne affected every aspect of my life, as I mentioned earlier. So my breakthrough. In the book, I detailed how my face was transformed from a face severely affected by acne to a face that was clear and that is clear of acne. I composed a poem. I like poem a lot. I had about 3 poems in this book. So on the one on my breakthrough, I also composed a poem, but I'm not going to read it. I'm going to leave it for you when you buy the book to read it. So the poem pretty much sums up the transformation of my face. So another thing that I mentioned in this book was exquisite from the inside out. So I shared in my book how we can influence the beauty that is visible on the outside of our being mindful of what we take into our bodies. You will also read in this book some tips for looking after the outward appearance of your skin, as well as some helpful natural and chemical products and techniques. So I'm going to finish on this note. At the very beginning of this book, I had a quote, and I'm going to read it. It's a very short one, and it's from Psalm 139, verse 14. It says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. I have come to understand that the workings of the human body are stunning in their design and execution. Therefore, I give God all the praise and adoration for his goodness and his faithfulness in my life. Having acknowledged how acne affected me in all ramifications of life, I am still able to declare the word of God that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm just going to share my screen now. I don't know if you can you see my screen?
No, we can't see your screen, but you can share it because I've enabled you to share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's starting to come on now. Yeah, we can see it now.
Yeah, so this is my picture and my name is on it, and it's the front of my book. And also, you can purchase my book from Amazon and from my website at www.luipop.com. And you can also email me at luipop@aol.com. I've also included my social handles. So thank you very much, Makonnen. I'm so grateful for giving me this platform to showcase my book. Thank you so much. Over to you, Makonnen.
Okay, thank you very much, Betty. Can you just mention, for the people that are watching via Facebook, because obviously we can see, can you just mention the people that are listening on radio what the website is?
Okay. The website again?
Yeah, just mention it.
Okay, my website is www.luipop.com, and my email address is luipop@aol.com.
How do you spell
And
it?
then LUYIPOP@AOL.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
please
my
do put your details in the Zoom chat as well of where the book's available to be purchased from, and any other links that you want to share as well.
okay.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to share my screen. Right, so everyone should be able to see my screen now. Could someone just say yes, just so they can see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
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 Okay,
See it.
that's fine. So what I'm going to speak about now is the partnership between Polyglot Translation Services and the Black Book Show. So you all know what the Black Book Show is because obviously you're on, the platform, but you may be unfamiliar with Polyglot Translation Services. So Polyglot Translation Services, they are a partner company of the Black Book Show, which translate books in over 35 different languages. They cover European languages such as English, French, Spanish, German, Italian, Russian, Polish, and others. They also provide local translations in a number of African languages, including Twi, Ga, Ewe, which are languages in Ghana, Yoruba, Igbo, which are languages in Nigeria, Swahili, which is commonly spoken among countries in East Africa and Southeast Africa, and other languages. One of the reasons the Black Book Show decided to partner with Polyglot Translation Services is because they also cover book translation in a variety of different African languages, as well as European languages. When I was in Ghana, that's where I actually linked up with Polyglot Translation Services. Now, the main benefit of as an author for getting your book translated is that you have it gives you a wider audience of readership. Hence, you have the potential to maximize profit because instead of your book only being able to be read by people who speak English, for example, translating your book into another language now means you have more potential customers. So I'm going to use my latest book as an example, which is called Experiences of Living Across Africa. This is the front cover of the book. Now, this book is about, as it says, on the title, about people's experiences of living across Africa. Most of the people are people of African heritage from the diaspora that have gone to live on the continent, and also some that have moved from one African country to another African country. So the reason why I've decided to get this book translated into another language, I think I'm gonna get it translated into French, is because there are people in the book that speak about their experiences, and in those particular countries, English isn't the most common language, isn't a language that is spoken by the majority of people. There's the native African languages, and then many of them, there's also they're in Francophone African countries such as Alpha Yaya Toure in Guinea, where French is commonly spoken. There's Terian King in Senegal, where French is also commonly spoken. So it also, for me to also appeal to those markets, and also the diaspora, in France there is a large, there's a good population of Africans living in France, but to also appeal to to a wider audience of people that don't necessarily speak English as their first language. It does make sense for me to get the book translated to also appeal to a wider audience of people. So another advantage of getting your book translated is it gives you more credibility as an author. So if you say, you've got your book translated in another language, it's really about seeing yourself as an international author, not just as a local or national author, and your book could perform better in terms of sales in another country than it performs in the current country that you're in. There are many authors who sell better in foreign markets or strategically target their books to markets in different countries. So by having your book translated into other languages, it means your book can be eligible as well to awards in other languages, or become a best-selling book in another language. This gives more credibility to your book. So far, Polyglot Translation Services have done 4 book translation projects with authors from the Black Book Show in recent months. And just some of the feedback that has come back from some of the clients. This is from Aduni. Aduni is a Nigerian based in the UK. She said, based on her book getting translated by Polyglot Translation Services, my book, Fruits of the Spirit, has been well translated into 5 languages: French, Spanish, Yoruba, Italian, and German by Polyglot Translation Services, and is now available on Amazon. And she's given a 5-star review. This is by Penny. Penny is, I believe she's based in the UK, but she's from Namibia. Her review says, my book, We Need One Another, has been well translated into Swahili by Polyglot Translation Services. I received quick and excellent service from them, and she's also given them a 5-star review. But don't just take my word for it. If you actually go on Google yourself, you can look at their reviews. They have 36 reviews on Google, and they've got 4.8 stars, which, to have 4.8 stars from 36 reviews is generally quite good. And you can check it on Google yourself if you type in Polyglot Translation Services. So if you're an author and you're interested in getting your book translated into another language, please do contact me. You can contact me via email, is info@blackbookshows.com. That is info@blackbookshows.com. Following receipt of the email, I'll put you in touch with a member of Polyglot Translation Services who will be able to provide you with a quote for getting your book translated. They can also answer any questions you have and provide you with further assistance. Once again, that is info@blackbookshows.com. I will also put that in the Zoom chat in case you want to reach out to me regarding getting your book translated into another language. Right, I'm now going to go on to the next speaker on the Black Book Show. The next speaker is Kingsley Pilgrim. So Kingsley, could you please, start by introducing yourself, tell the audience where you're based, and then go on to tell us about the book that you've written?
Oh, yeah. My name is Kingsley Pilgrim. I'm based in Milton Keynes, which is a city just about 50 miles outside London in the UK. And I'm here to talk about my book, Humberfield, which is my 4th book. And it is a collection of short stories set in a fictional town in the UK. It's a bit of a departure from my last books, because my last books were science fiction. They were they were fun to write. They were based obviously on another planet as such, and but I thought for book 4 I'll just try and get more normal, as it were, and write about stuff which we can all kind of relate to, because it's nice to read about science fiction and watch science fiction films and stuff. We love the films like Avengers and the X-Men and stuff, and Superman, but I thought for my new book, I just try and be more normal, as it were, and try and do a book which is, kind of based in the UK, or kind of based on Earth, as it were. So I thought I'd do a book, which is it's still a fiction book, but and hearing books today, which are all non-fiction. I'm quite humble to be in your company, but I thought I'd just try and do a book which is, I love writing about stuff which is quite dark, and and doesn't which doesn't really end well for the protagonists in the books, as it were. So I did that, and it's kind of strange because I when it comes to writing books, I didn't think I could do that. I'm not I didn't come from a very good academic background and stuff and that. And what it was, because I still have a really bad stutter. And at school, I couldn't really speak. And it's fine because when you're at home with your parents and your family, it wasn't really brought up because obviously you were in some bubble, as it were, of I guess of kindness and love. But when you go to school, that's when people tend to pick it up, and they say, like, why does your eye do that, or why can't you speak properly? And then it does tend to you think, wow, there's something wrong with me. And I think when you're at primary school, when you're like 4 or 5, it wasn't a big problem because kids aren't that age malicious. They don't really mean any harm to you. Just why can't you speak? But when you get older, when I went to my secondary school, that's when problems became more apparent. When when I had to read in my English lesson. And what we had at school, we had a circle of kids, and we had to read a section from a book, and we had to read a page of any of a book, and when you have a stammer, you're so nervous because when it's your turn, it will go wrong, and so you can see like the teacher counting down. You can see you say, okay, Darren, you read a page, then Sharon, then Sandra, and then Kingsley, and I'm really nervous now. And when it comes to my turn, I can't read. I know I can read, but the words don't come out. I start stuttering and stammering, and so my classmates think I can't read, and they start, laughing at me. The teacher thinks I've got problems. So then I don't speak. I just keep quiet. And so all through my all through my secondary school, I kept quiet. I didn't say anything at all. And became kind of a recluse because I knew, and even when I knew the answers to other questions in the lessons, I just kept quiet. I knew whatever I say, I can't get the words out. I won't get the words out, and I'll start stammering. So I just kept quiet. So that happened all the way through. And the only thing I could do, or the only thing I did enjoy, was drama. I loved acting, and oddly enough, when I was on stage doing drama, I could speak. I could say the words. I could say anything I wanted. I could do Shakespeare on stage, but when it comes to having a conversation with somebody off of that, I couldn't say a word. So I left school, and I went to community theatre and did plays there, and it was fine. And from community theatre, I went on to do short films, and I did student films for other people. And then I got a break in a big film. Was at the time in the UK, it was a big film called Rolling with the Nines, and that was big, and I had a small part in that, but that was quite a good film. And through that, I got an agent, and I did more films. I did some adverts and stuff, and did more films. And I thought, okay, listen, I can speak now. I can speak on stage, so let's try something different. So after the acting, I thought, let's try some comedy. So I did stand-up comedy for a while as well, and that was the hardest test, I think, doing comedy, because I think I think you can. To go on stage is the hardest thing. Whatever you say doesn't matter. It's making that first step to go on stage and tell a gag is the hardest thing. And so I had to really slow down what I was going to say and think about it and think about what I was going to, and hopefully be funny. And so I had to think about speaking properly and then speaking and make it funny as a comedian. And I did that as well. So I kept trying different things out. And I just thought, yeah, okay, let's try a new thing. And the new thing was writing. So I think back in 2009, I had an idea to write a book. And that was a book called Paint Shark. And that was my first book. And that was just about a young girl can turn into a dragon. And then I did a sequel called Glimmer Thin. And I had Immortopia, which was the last book in 2014. And then I had, no, so 2000, yeah. And sorry, 2014. And then I had a long break and started writing Humberfield, which took 6 years to write. And that was my current book now. And this is apart from what I did before. And it's a dark book, as in the fact that, you know, I mean, there are 9 different stories in it, and the stories are quite, they do branch out in a different way. I mean, they're slightly connected, but the books about the stories about sexism and bullying, racism. There's the domestic violence in there as well, and also the rise of the incel culture as well, which is quite disturbing as well, because obviously we have a lot of stuff about Andrew Tate as well. So I did that. I had to put it in there because it's such a current issue we have at the moment in the UK, and I guess in the US as well, about how some men think that they aren't that they think they're not right for women, or women aren't right for them, and they feel threatened by them, and they feel they have to, I guess, lash out at them. So I thought I had to put it in there as well. So there's a story about that in there. There's a story called Where is Molly Holiday, which is about that as well, about a influencer who gets kidnapped by a guy who has a crush on her, and they both explain why he thinks he should kidnap her, and why she thinks why he's a bad guy, and as well. And it's just, you know, I mean, it's not horror. There's no science fiction. There's no ghost story. It's just about people in the wrong place in the wrong time, and that's what I love about it. And I think I enjoyed writing the last few books, but this book, especially for me, I think I love every story in the book, and yeah, so that's it. You know, it is very dark. You know, I'm not saying it's like a Disney sort of read, but the book is, you know, it does make sense in some ways, and it does make you think, wow, okay, that could happen. Because that's the thing. I think out of the actual stories, there's 9 of them, and I think okay, 2 or 3 are quite far fetched, but the other, say, 6 or 7, you think, wow, that could happen. That could happen. And yeah, again, it's a bit of a dark mirror sort of book, but I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed every minute of it, and it took a time to write. Obviously, I was writing through the pandemic, and I had to keep down my full-time job. But the book's out of there. Humberfield, it's out on Amazon and other online bookstores, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It's a good read. I'm not just saying how good is my book, but yeah, if you do like, you know, anything, if you like, I guess, Twilight, not Twilight Zone, I guess in the US probably, yeah, Black Mirror, then yeah, that's the book for you, Humberfield. But yeah, it was cool. It was nice to write, and again, it wasn't just like a normal. There's no such thing as a normal science fiction, but not normal fiction book. It's just that, you know, there's a little village that doesn't exist, Humberfield. It's just a village where strange things happen to people, and, you know, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Not of them are all bad, but things just don't turn out right for them, and that's what I wrote about. And and I think also because even my writing style is kind of, I have my stamina is still there, but the way I write is kind of like 100 miles per hour, and that's probably why I have this style of very quick and then stop for a while and a long gap and then I start again, and that's how I tend to write at the moment. But no, it's but if you like dark stories, if you like stuff which is doesn't really work out for the protagonist, Humberfield for you, try it out. It's on Amazon and other online bookstores at the moment. So yeah, cool. But I'm not sure how long I've got. Didn't speak fucking go. But yeah, but I just love to write, and I love writing. I also write. I also produce stuff. I produce films as well. I produced and I've written 2 films. No, I produced 2 films, both on YouTube. One is called The Dominant Species, and one of them is called Carly. And Carly actually stars. I don't know if you know. In the US, there's a show called Top Boy, and one of the stars is called Jasmine Jobson, and she, before she became big in the UK, she appeared in my short film. And so if I do a sequel to Carly, then yeah, hopefully she'll be in as well. But I doubt it because she's big now, and I'm kind of, I'm way down here. But check it out, Carly, on Carly 2018 on YouTube. Have a look at that. But that's me. That's Kingsley Pilgrim.
Okay, thank you very much, Kingsley Pilgrim. So if you could please put your details to where your book can be purchased in the Zoom chat, please.
So yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to go on to our next speaker. She is actually one of the sponsors of the Black Book Show, Caro, Sika. She is from LobbyNoir, which is a business directory, but I'm going to let her explain everything about what she does. So, Caro, Sika, welcome onto the Black Book Show for the first time as a speaker. And start by giving a brief introduction about who you are, tell us where you're based, and then go on to tell us all about your business, LobbyNoir.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be amongst you. And thank you very much, Makonnen, for this platform and for showcasing Black authors and just giving us the opportunity just to hear each other's story. And I've been tremendously blessed, so far by everything that I've heard. So very happy to be part and for LobbyNoir to be a media sponsor today. So my name is Sika. I'm a cultural mediator by trade, but tonight I'm representing the entity LobbyNoir.com, as you can see from my signature and from the name. Basically, LobbyNoir started in 2017. It's based in France, in Paris. And how it started is that the founder, after the Libya story, where we find out that there were many African migrants that were taken into slavery, a lot of protests broke out in Europe, and France was one country. And he was really bothered by the treatment and the narrative of this story in 2017. And he thought that for the Francophone space, he wanted to create a platform that would kind of boost collective economics and that would give much more visibility to Black entrepreneurs. So really the aim was social justice, it was much more equity, and it's just to kind of be able to support one another so that economically we are stronger. And obviously, in the long run, we can start affecting politics and the way our people are kind of looked at and treated worldwide. Now, from this, it kind of evolved, and his vision was very clear from the start. He wanted it to be a global platform. So from the start, when they started the directory, He had different languages, so there was both French and English available. So it allowed for business entrepreneurs worldwide to register their businesses for free. And it also was integrated into an app, which meant that based on your geographical location, people could find you. So somebody, for instance, going to the US could just tap what they were looking for, and businesses that are registered would come up. Now, as we carried on with this, the pandemic started, and we all found ourselves at home and not really able to trade. Especially for Black entrepreneurship, we find that a lot of times the way that we get our products out there would be physically, face-to-face through markets. And so this wasn't available. And also, we would not systematically have a digital presence. Sometimes we can rely a lot on social media. We can rely a lot on other platforms that are not necessarily community-based. So on the back of the directory, he created other platforms, and one is a marketplace. So I'm just going to show you very quickly what it looks like. And then from there, I will move on to actually present 3 books that I have with me, because we also list books. So can you see my screen? No,
Yes,
you
we
see
can.
my screen. Okay,
Yeah.
so I've gone through the quickest route. As you can see the site is LobbyNoir.com. So that's the institutional site. All the platforms that we have 5 different sites. They're all integrated in the app, which is available in Google for Androids and in Apple Store, and it's called LobbyNoir, which you can download for free. Now, the reason I've picked this up is because here on the right-hand side, if you click on it, you will actually have the different sites that we have. As you can see, the site is available both in English and in French. I'm in the English version. I'm going to click on LN Marketplace, and it will open up the actual marketplace. So you can just have a quick look at it. Well, it should. So let's see. It's always the same, isn't it? Is that when you want to use the tech, it's taking forever for some reason. So okay, there it is. So here we go. So that's the platform. So as you know, the tech kind of evolves very quickly, and we are still in a startup process, if that makes sense. So a lot of the capital that is invested in it is to kind of work on the tech as things evolve. So just bear this in mind. All right. So here, I'm just going to take this off. Right, so I'm just taking this off. So we have the different departments, and one is books and stationery. So I'm just going to go into this. Now, what I love, and in the books that I'm going to present to you, what I really love is that we have the possibility of having ebooks. And the ebooks can be downloaded. The data center of the sites are with Hostinger, so it's very secure. And it's a very nice way, wherever you find yourself in the world, to actually have your work accessible without having going through third party, because you would basically, you know, have your downloadable option and people can have the book right away. It saves also on shipping fees and that sort of things. But you can also have obviously the physical version of your books. So we've got different things, like for instance, this one is a brother who is in Congo, Kinshasa, and he's done 2 books. One is a dictionary, which is like Lingala, which is the Congolese language, main language, and French. So he's got this dictionary, and he's also got a training book to teach Lingala. And this is for him, it's an ebook, so it can be downloaded, which is kind of very nice. So you just have a little selection of some of the books that we have. The marketplace allows you to choose 3 different types of currencies. So you can actually, based on where you find yourself, you can just select you can select here the currency. So here I'm in English pound, but you've got also euro and dollars, and it will give you the currency accordingly. The other thing is that we have different languages that are available, and again, based on where you are, it will pick up the right language. So that's for this. Now I'm just going to present you with some of the books that we have that I have in my possession, and two of them I have to say are self-published as well, which is like nice to present today. And it's nice because it's allowing me to actually use the platform as well as an offer and to experience it. And I really like especially the ebook version. So what I want to present to you today, and I don't know if I made this clear, but we are a community of entrepreneurs. So we're showcasing a lot of entrepreneurs that are based in different places in the world. Now, let me see if I can put myself back in show grid video. Okay, all right, I think, don't know. So this book is, in fact, I'm going to show you the packaging first. It's the first African bedtime songs and nursery rhymes audiobook, which is absolutely fantastic. So especially coming up to the festive season. So basically the author is Senegalese, and what she has created, let's see if I can, yeah. What she has created is a storybook, and you might see, like, for instance, the first one is called Shosholoza, it's from South Africa. You have the lyrics in South African, so in Zulu, for this one. And then you have translation in both. You're not going to see all of it, but you've got translation both in French and in English. And if you click on the button, so you're going to hear the song. And what the child can do is to sing along, read, and understand. So I'm just gonna stop this one. You just press the button, and they've got different languages. So I'll take another one, for instance. I'm going to take Wolof from Senegal, which is this one. And what she has done, which is really beautiful, and again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this, but each page, let me see if I can show you that. Maybe not. Okay, I'm not going to be able to show you that. It's a little bit too small. But each page, basically at the bottom, she's got the map of Africa, and it's got the flag and the location. So the child is very educational. He sings, he knows what language she's singing, what country it's from, where it is in Africa, and he can place it as well and see the flag. So that's another one. If I, for instance, press on it, you're going to hear that one is Wolof. So that's that. And that one is available for children 1+. It's very good for families as well. I mean, we've got adults buying this just because it either reminds them songs that they learned when they were kids back home, or just because they want to even be introduced to another language in a fun way, or do this as a family activity. So they're very, very successful. Now, the two, and please, Makonnen, feel free to stop me if I'm going. I haven't kept a look at time, but I think I'm going to be 2 more minutes. So I'm just going to show you these other two, which are close to my heart. So one of the passion that I have is migration, the experience of migration, the impact that it has on families and intergenerationally. This one, they're very short tales. But it's always celebrating the endurance and the perseverance of those who left their native land and found themselves in another land and had to adapt. So I'm just going to read like a couple of lines of this one, which is called The Lion in the Midst of Bears. And you will see they're all illustrated, and the illustration kind of speak for themselves. So very briefly, okay. So as I said, it's a very short tale. A lion might find himself in the land of bears, forced by a violent fate of seeking food and shelter. Nonetheless, he remains a lion. He might learn to move like a bear, eat like a bear, communicate like a bear, yet he remains a lion. In time to come, he will have a family of his own, and he will be remembered as a lion who lived amongst bears. He will inspire other lions to adapt to new environments and survive the impossible, but especially to never forget where they came from, to keep on roaring in the face of adversity and overcome all obstacles. He will join the rank of the great lions of old who fulfilled their destiny. He will become a legend in the animal kingdom. And then you have the moral of the story. It's always like aimed to children, to all lion cubs who live in the land of bears. Trying to become a bear is futile and senseless, but to be a lion in the world is a certain end and one to be envied. And I particularly like the illustration where you will see like the little lion cub, or you will see like all the lions. So that's one. And then the last one is called The Boy Wearing a Red Hat. So this is basically inspired. We did a lot of work to support African students out of Ukraine when the war broke out because they were not given temporary protection in Europe, and they didn't come back in the same circumstances that the Ukrainian did. Now, this is inspired by a little boy called Oscar. His dad is Nigerian. He was a Nigerian student in a maritime academy when the war broke out, and he hasn't seen his son for 3 years. He's in the Netherlands now, but—
Hey, can you just start to wrap it up in a minute?
Sure, I will. Thank you. So he's in the Netherlands now. And it's just really to talk about the dehumanization of migrants, because for them, he's a migrant, he's not a dad. And this is really telling the story of Oscar from his perspective as a kid, encountering the world that he lives in. So that's another one. So that's that really for me. As you can see, the website is there. So you can see all of the products on the website, LobbyNoir.com. If you click on Marketplace LobbyNoir, it's also available directly going Marketplace LobbyNoir.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop a message in the chat. Thank you very much, Makonnen.
Okay, thank you. Please also put your links in the Zoom chat as well.
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay, great. So I'm now going to go on to the next speaker, the author. It's Danny Thompson. Danny, if you would please just come on, start by introducing yourself, tell us where you're based, and then go on to tell us about the book you've written.
Lovely. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Makonnen and Black Books. Can I actually just share my screen as a way of introduction?
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Thank
I've enabled you to do the screen share, so
okay.
Go ahead.
And let me just do a couple of things here. And yeah, so can people see my screen? Yes?
Sorry, yeah, we can share your screen. Just before you go ahead, Danny, I just want to say, Kingsley Pilgrim, please put the details of your book in the Zoom chat. There's a couple of people that have asked about your book, and I don't think I can see the link to your book. So Kingsley Pilgrim, just put the link to your book in the Zoom chat. Go ahead, Danny.
Okay, greetings. I'm Danny Thompson. I'm a historian. I'm also a musician, filmmaker, and I'm currently a PhD student. I'm studying at Chichester University under Professor Hakeem Addy, and I'm on the History of Africa and the African Diaspora program. I'd like to share with you my book, which is called Ethiopianism, The Forgotten Movement. And just to put it in context, before I'm about to start my second year in my PhD, 2 years ago, I did a MRes, which is a Master's in Research program at the same university. At the same university, under the same tutorage. Under the same tutelage. Sorry, Kingsley, I think you're not muted.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So this book came out of the research that I did for my dissertation for my master's. So it was originally, as I say, a dissertation. I then expanded it into book form, which you see in front of you. Ethiopianism, the Forgotten Moment. I'm just going to read the back page for you. Imagine an international network of Black student activists and church ministers imbued with a radical zeal to challenge colonialism and restore African culture. Imagine this network sharing ideas and creating institutions and organizations, some of which have lasted to this day. Such a network did exist, and from it arose a movement. It was called Ethiopianism. And during the 19th century, it promoted a set of ideas and core values that would become known as Pan-Africanism. So that's my book, which I'd like to share with you. I've prepared a short presentation. I'm going to, hopefully it will fit in 15 minutes because I'm used to doing 90-minute presentations. One thing I did forget to mention is that I'm also co-director of the blacksecret.co.uk, which is an online Black history education platform where we do education classes primarily aimed at adults. We cover ancient, medieval, and modern history. I'll put the details in the chat. So yeah, let's get to it. So first question, what was Ethiopianism? Ethiopianism was a global Black nationalist movement which reached its zenith in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Centered in an African Christian liberation ideology, its biblically inspired ideas traveled on an African revolutionary wave from the United States to Africa, to the Caribbean, and to Europe. It inspired religious movements which built hundreds of radical churches across the US, Africa, and the Caribbean. It produced some of the most significant African theologists and activists of the 19th century. Now, many people refer to Ethiopianism as the precursor to Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. Sometimes it's referred to as proto-Pan-Africanism. The term Pan-Africanism came into usage around 1900. The period that I was looking at, my research, is from the 1880s into the early 1900s, yeah? And prior to that in terms of history of. So what were the main tenets of Ethiopianism? What were the core values of Ethiopianism? God in human form is Black and deliberately misportrayed as white. Black should direct their own religious and secular destinies. Ethiopia is the symbolic home of all Black people and the root of their cultural and historical legacies, especially for Christian Blacks. This connection gives Blacks a direct claim to ancient civilizations and histories. Whites are naturally aggressive and acquisitive. God will intercede on behalf of Blacks against whites, otherwise known as providential design. Blacks are a noble race brought low by white oppression. Ethiopia / Africa is the place to where Blacks should return and or should develop through financial and political investment. Now, you see, I've used the term Africa, Ethiopia / Africa. From ancient period, Africa was called Ethiopia, not just a country, but all of known Africa during the ancient period. The ancient Greeks called Africa Ethiopia. So did the ancient Romans. As a point of interest, if you look at old maps, what today is the Atlantic Ocean used to be called the Ethiopic Sea, when you go back and you find maps old enough. So the various groups, organizations, and individuals and churches within this Ethiopianist movement follow these core values. They varied in terms of which values would be the dominant values according to region, according to organization, according to individual. But those were the basic tenets of Ethiopianism. So next question that needs answering, why Ethiopia? The King James Bible, written in 1611, was an English translation and adaptation of the earlier Hebrew and Greek version. It emphasized the term Ethiopian as a reference to African people. If you read the Bible, you see the term Ethiopian, you know that they're speaking about African people. Now, spiritually, Ethiopianism was rooted in Psalm 68, chapter 31. Princes shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God. Now, this passage was adopted by African Christians as a prophetic declaration of future liberation from European oppression. Yes, one day Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands and liberate us from this European oppression. And it also gave birth to the idea of what's been called a divine mandate or divine providence. Yes, God will intercede on behalf of the African. Now, I cited Ethiopianism as a global movement. What do I mean by that? I'm going to try and break it down in the form of a diagram. So you had US Ethiopianist churches sending missionaries and representatives to Southern Africa, West Africa, the Caribbean, and the United Kingdom. So you can see the arrows pointing from America to Britain, to different parts of Africa and the Caribbean. One of these churches was one of the main US churches associated with this was the AMEC, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. They literally trained up their own missionaries in Ethiopianist ideology, Black liberation theory ideology, and sent them out to other Black communities around the world to teach this liberation ideology. So you had a movement of churches, ministers, missionaries from the US to other parts of the world. You had Ethiopianist ministers and activists from the Caribbean traveling to Southern Africa, West Africa, Britain, and the US, yes, as represented by the green arrows. Then you had Southern African and West African Ethiopianist activists traveling to Britain and the US, as represented by the green arrows. These movements occurred over the latter half of the 19th century. They created Ethiopianist networks which developed and disseminated Pan-Africanist ideals. They also advocated for an African Christian nationalist church. Now, this idea was very popular, very significant in West Africa. And the idea was for a unified African Christian nationalist church in West Africa, which would be the first stage to a United States of West Africa. Yes, and you had people like Ethiopianists such as Edward Blyden, Bishop Horton, Ghanaians such as J. Kingsley Hayford, all proposing an African Christian nationalist church as the first step towards a united West Africa united against European oppression. So that was the networks that were created through these movements of radical preachers and radical students, which is what I want to step to next. Now, Britain, and in particular London, became the hub, the center of this movement. Why? Because this is a period in history where, remember, this is the height of Victorianism, Queen Victoria. This is the height of British colonialism. The British have an expression, the empire was so big, the British Empire was so big, the sun never set on it. This is during that period. So many of these students and activists and radical preachers, they came to the belly of the beast to advocate on behalf of their peoples. And I'd like to read, here's a copy of the book. I'd like to read a quote from a South African student who came to Oxford University around 1904. His name was Pixley Seme, and he was a South African mature student. And when asked why he and others were coming to study in these universities, he said, "Those who studied abroad learnt that knowledge is power. You can find them in Edinburgh, in Cambridge, and in the good schools of Germany. These return to their countries like arrows to drive darkness from the land." The darkness referred to was the colonial system, and they were the arrows guided by the Ethiopianist missionary imperative. So their whole philosophy was to, go abroad, rinse out the education system, learn what you can, become a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, and then bring those skills back to their homeland, as well as while they were there, advocate on behalf of their homelands, yes? Petition the Houses of Parliament, petition English liberal organizations to support their anti-colonial, anti-racist movements. And if I could just read one more quote from my book. Edinburgh, Liverpool, and Oxford universities were all hubs for Black student activism. At Edinburgh University in Scotland, they formed the Afro-West Indian Literary Society and the West African Medical Students Association. In Liverpool University, students formed the Ethiopian Association, which evolved into the Ethiopian Progressive Association. At Oxford University, they formed an African Students Club, which changed its name to the African Union Society. In London, Black students at the prestigious law schools, Gray's Inn and Lincoln's Inn, were very active in anti-colonial organizations and activities. Many fulfilled their aim of gaining legal qualifications, then returning to their native lands to practice on behalf of their people. To this effect, they lobbied politicians and wrote to the press in both Britain and West Africa and the Caribbean. So those were the activities that were taking place along these networks, yes? I want to focus on Samuel Jules Celestine Edwards, Ethiopianism's visionary newspaper editor. The life and work of Samuel Jules Celestine Edwards provides us with a clear portrait of Ethiopianist activism in Britain. Many of you, the blue plaque that you can see is a plaque. They placed blue plaques honoring outside the house of somebody of importance who lived there. So this is a blue plaque for Celestine Edwards, placed by Sunderland City Council outside the house in Sunderland where he first lived, yeah? And it says, born in Dominica, said to be Britain's first Black newspaper editor, he was a preacher and tireless anti-racist and anti-imperialist activist. He resided in Sunderland briefly and lectured in the Assembly Hall once, which once stood there. Now you see his dates: born 1858, died 1894. Unfortunately, he died very young. He was 34 years old, but he did created an incredible body of work whilst whilst alive and in this country. So I'd like to share with you some examples of his work. He became editor of Lux in 1892 and Fraternity in 1893. These were two of the most radical publications of their day, both nationally distributed newspapers, thus making him the first Black editor of a national newspaper in Britain. As editor for Lux and Fraternity, he wrote several articles challenging the colonial system and the British racist beliefs that fueled it. For example, September 1892, he wrote an article, and his articles were long, okay? He wrote an article, Christianity and Progress, whereby he challenged the European notion that it was the enlightened rationalism of the French Revolution that caused the abolition of slavery. He argued it was the efforts of enslaved Africans themselves and cited the Haitian Revolution as proof of this. So what was happening was, from 1830s onwards, various African nations emancipated themselves, freed themselves from enslavement. Now the Europeans were arguing, oh, that's because they've been exposed to the ideas of European Enlightenment, European rationalism.
Okay, Danny, can you just start to wrap it up?
Yeah. Again? I need to wrap it up.
Start to wrap it up. Yeah.
Okay. So this is just an example of one of the articles that he wrote. Other examples are he attacked the British expansion in Uganda, in Southern Africa. He attacked the scientific racism. He attacked Christian missionary support in colonial wars, and he challenged the £20 million compensation given to British slave owners in 1834 and asked why nothing was offered to the enslaved themselves. I'm going to skip the next slide. And just to say, this is the book. It's available from Amazon or from my website, evolvingcreatives.com. Thank you. Back to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Danny Thompson, Ethiopianism, the Forgotten Movement. That book, where's that book available from?
Like I said, I'm going to put details in the chat, but from my own website, which is www.evolvingcreatives.com, or from Amazon.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'm now going to introduce the next author. The next author is actually one of the co-authors of my recent book called Experiences of Living Across Africa. This book is focused on 14 nations situated in different regions of Africa, north, south, east, and west. And through reading the book, you will gain a better understanding of what to anticipate and consider when relocating to one of the African countries. The majority of the people in the book, Experiences of Living Across Africa, are those from the diaspora that have gone on to move to the continent. And it also features some people that have moved from one African country to another African country. It's an anthology book. So I am the main author of the book. In the book, I talk about my time living in the Gambia, my time living in Ghana, and also the introduction. And there's a chapter in the book which says things to consider when moving to Africa, which was written by me. But other chapters in the book, there are authors that have basically written their own stories about their experiences of living in the different African countries that they've lived in. So this anthology is a great resource for people looking to move to Africa and for those eager to learn about the customs and cultures of different African societies. Additionally, this book can also be used for those searching for a place to visit on holiday. So I'm now going to introduce the next author. So the author is Neferatiti. If you would like to come on and tell us about the chapter you've written in the book, which is focused on Zimbabwe.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Neferatiti Ife. Before I start talking about Zimbabwe, I'm an author as well. I've written 2 books. Quick plug, Shine Your Divine Light and Conversation with the Black Man's God. So I'm a very spiritual person. I connect with my ancestors. I get information from my ancestors, and they really inform my life. I'm also a trained counselor and social worker. So my journey to Zimbabwe, my partner who is now passed away, Menelik Shabazz, I'll mention him. And he really was pivotal in me going to Zimbabwe. He did a film called Burning an Illusion. He was invited to show this film. It's about a Black woman on her journey in life and the tribulations that she went through. And that film happened in the 1980s. So he went to Zimbabwe, see what the country was like, and also Zambia. And he said, Nef, you need to come to Zimbabwe. And I was so excited. Anyway, I went to Zambia and then also Zimbabwe. And it was really a journey of enlightenment for me. I really, really enjoyed it. So Zimbabwe is full of political history. They've got an history, I don't know if people know about it, of white people that came over and settled there. And then there was some issues that went on. And I don't want to get into the politics because everything in Zimbabwe is politics. And once you start to talk, you can get into kind of, it's almost us against them kind of situation. But it's good to go there and experience the real politics, the influence of colonialism, and how colonialism has affected the people that actually live on the lands. So most of the people live in areas that is not the best part of Zimbabwe. And this is my opinion, especially in the cities. So most of the white settlers lived in the big the best areas that was really fertile. And then when they came over, they also had farms, and then they had Black people, the Africans working for them. So that's kind of the history. And the Africans, the Shona people, and fought for their land. So that's my perspective on the history. And if you want to know more, you basically have to go and have a look, because there's a lot of information out there. So that's the history of Zimbabwe in a bit of a nutshell. And I'm sure I missed out loads of stuff. My experience of living in Zimbabwe. So we had gone, I think, maybe about 5 times. And you need a visa to get into the country, and the visa lasts for about 3 months. We went to the falls. So a lot of the names, for example, Victoria Falls, were they were renamed by the colonialists. So what happened is that Mugabe changed the names back to Shona names or African names, different African people in the country. They changed all the names back to African names, and they're now kind of looking at their ancestors and putting their ancestors in statues and really going back to their culture and connecting with their culture. So it's a very cultural place. They're very good at stone figures. So the people there are very artistic, like they do drawings of animals, sculptures, and they have a totem system. As again, that is another exploration. So the animal you would be a part of, it's a bit complicated to explain, but you would have, if you have a virtues of, for example, a zebra, then you'd be from that kind of lineage. And then zebras have to marry somebody else from another totem. I don't know if people understand it. I'm probably not explaining it properly, but you're associated, and it's like your mannerisms is associated to a particular animal, and all the people from your family, your clan, would be from that particular animal. So there is the zebra, there's the monkey, there's the elephant, and they also use parts of the anatomy, like the arm as well. So that's a bit of the traditional religious system, but people are also mainly Christians over there. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so the next thing is the food. So the food is very, very different to my food. My parents are from Guyana in the Caribbean and Suriname. So the food is very, very different. They eat something called sadza, which is like pounded yam. It's made out of wheat, and that comes with meat if you eat meat or chicken or fish, and I don't eat either of them. So for me, being a vegan in Zimbabwe was a bit difficult. And if you're going there on a holiday, you need to kind of think about what you're going to eat, because it's a meat-eating country. So that's the food. Getting around the country is massive, and getting from A to B is basically long car rides. We went from, depending on where you are in the country also, you can get to South Africa, you can get to Namibia, because it's an inland country. You can get to Botswana, I've written it down. You can get to Mozambique, I think that's it, and Zambia. So it's surrounded in the middle of all these other different countries, and it's easy to get there, but it's a long car ride because it's a massive country. My experience of the country is that it's very British. We would go out to eat and you can have scones. There's a lot of British people about, and as I said, there's British names for roads, and that's still got an influence. The Britishness has still got an influence in the country. There's also a lot of mining going on in the country for minerals. So you might see somebody who stops you in the road and says, you know, do you wanna start mining for gold? Do you want to start mining for crystals, or whatever you're into? And you always have to be aware of that. So that is basically the total of the theory stuff. So my experience of the country is that initially people were very, very nice to me, but as time had gone past, and with you know, the economy, because Zimbabwe is strangled by all of these other countries that have got them under sanctions, because Zimbabwe won't do what all the other countries want to do, basically the West, to be honest. And so the money that they use is dollars and then their own money as well. But it seems like most people want to use the American dollar over there, which causes a problem. Everything is really expensive. And also they import a lot of the food because the land is quite dry. Certain parts of Zimbabwe is quite dry. Unlike the Caribbean, where we get a lot of water, we're very fertile, they have to import quite a lot of food and a lot of products, which means it's quite expensive, and it's expensive for the local people as well. My personal opinion of Zimbabwe and my experience was that it really gave me, I don't know, I really felt empowered because I was in a country where everybody looked like me. Everybody kind of treated me like I was somebody. You know, that racism that I experienced in the UK, I didn't feel it. I did feel like I was the other though, because I couldn't speak the language. I found it easy to get around, although they haven't got transport. You have to get a taxi to go everywhere. So that could be expensive, but the level of crime when I was there wasn't really high. It was you could get a lift from anybody that's driving, and they wouldn't want to kidnap you. You know, people are really kind in that respect. When I was there, we actually bought a house, which I'm going to be selling, but we bought a house that was very complicated, because their whole legal system is very British and everything takes a long time. But once you get there, you get a house and then you get solar because the electricity system cuts off. You get your internet, you get all your basic amenities, then life in Zimbabwe might be really comfortable for you. Might be a bit more expensive than the UK, but it can be very comfortable. And what I like about the country is that there's a lot of land. You know, the house that we bought was a round house, and you could just come out and sit with the trees. You can be relaxed. There's a lot of pollution. You can go and buy your food from the local woman down the road, and you can get your fresh food. You can cook it. You can grow food in your garden, you know, and eating fresh food, having that kind of atmosphere is really, really relaxing. I find it really relaxing when I go there. Excuse me. I would encourage people to visit the country, especially Africans in the diaspora, because it kind of centers you back into who you are. You know, you look around, everybody's looking like you. You're not feeling like you're a strange person, and you just feel at one with them because they're a part of you. And you realize there's people that you see in the UK that you can it looks like somebody in Zimbabwe. We're all one. So that connected me to everybody. It connected me to who I was. And also what I found was that I saw Black people, and it sounds stupid, that were lawyers, solicitors, dentists. When you keep seeing that on a regular basis, you start to feel good. I saw people, Black couples, obviously, because you're in Africa, but you don't see that in the UK as much as you do when you're there. So you start to feel your self-esteem starts to rise. People, you know, and you start to think, well, England is not the world. That's just a part of the world. There's something happening somewhere else, and I can make a life here. The reason that I had to come back is obviously my partner passed away, and what happened is that I couldn't see myself living there alone. As a woman, you're living now in another country, you need networks, you need medical system, you need a support system. And if you haven't got that, it can be quite lonely. And that's why I came back to the UK. Another thing that you need to consider also is medical insurance, because if, you know, you get ill, what is going to happen? You may not be well enough to get a plane back to the UK. And if you have a condition, you need to think about where you're going to get your medication, how much is it going to cost, etc., etc. But apart from that, I would encourage people to go to Zimbabwe, see what it's like, understand this is the workings of colonialism. You can see the effects of it, how people on the ground have been affected by white settlers coming into the country and how they treated those people. And it's, you know, I feel passionate about it. People got treated so badly. And instead of getting paid, some of them actually got food, a little bit of sadza, you have that. And they had all these people around them supporting them on a low wage, if a wage at all, or they just were given food. So when you look at the news and what the news is saying, it's a distortion of what is actually happening on the ground. And there's still white people living in Zimbabwe who will not leave. You know, if it's that bad, you know, I would say, why are they still there? There's still people still there. And what's interesting is looking at South Africa, which is just nearby, and how people are living in South Africa. So I got a real sense of, you know, Southern Africa. I wanted to travel a lot more, because when you're in Zimbabwe, obviously, as I said, you can go to Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique, Tanzania, because these countries are not far. And I would encourage people to really go and enjoy, experience, and just feel connected. They speak the same language as I do, which was very easy. I did learn some Shona words, but not enough. So there's different dialects. There's Shona, there's Ndebele, and there's also different dialects as well.
Okay, yeah. Just got 1 minute to wrap it up.
Okay, just trying to rush it. Yeah, I would encourage people to go there just as a form of connection and seeing that we've actually got a history on the ground there. We actually built stuff in Zimbabwe ourselves many, many moons ago that's still standing. So the Great Wall of Zimbabwe is still there, and the country is a fantastic country. So I'd encourage people to visit it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I did put the details of the book Experiences of Living Across Africa in the Zoom chat. So in case you are interested in purchasing the book is available on Amazon in paperback, and it's also available in Kindle now. But yeah, it's a very interesting book, particularly from the perspective of those, you know, from the diaspora that have gone onto the, you know, the continent and have moved to various different African countries. And I wanted to capture, you know, not only West Africa, because a lot of us, you know, go to places like the Gambia, you know, Ghana, or, you know, or even Southeast Africa, like South Africa. But I wanted it to also have countries, you know, in different regions, you know, because Africa is so diverse. And even in one particular, country, it's so different depending on, the region that you go into. So I wanted in this book to encompass, the different cultures and societies, amongst the various different African countries, and also to have perspective of, some people that have, African nationals that have then moved to another African country, because that's a different experience as well. So that's quite interesting in how they see things and moving from one African country to another African country. So yeah, experiences of living across Africa. Get your copy of the book. It's also, there's a chapter in the book which is very, very useful called Things to Consider When Moving to Africa. I can't go into it right now, but there's a lot of information that if you are considering of moving to Africa, or thinking of going somewhere, looking for somewhere to go on holiday, or just interested in general information about the culture, customs, and societies of different African countries, you'll definitely find the book very, very useful. Right, I'm now going to go on to the next author on the Black Book Show virtual book tour this episode. It's B.G. Howard. B.G. Howard, welcome, back onto the Black Book Show virtual book tour for the second time. Please start by introducing yourself, tell us where you're based, and then go on to tell us about the book you've written.
Hi, Mr. Sankofa. It's a pleasure to see you again. Thank you for having us all. And again, my name is B.G. Howard, and I'm based in Jacksonville, Florida, United States. This novel, revised edition, Family Ties Thicker Than Blood, is actually a revision of my first title. The first title by name, Family Ties Thicker Than Blood. And I wrote this first novel in 2020. It was actually after I launched the novel in 2020 that I realized I didn't know what I was doing. So I took 2 years and went back to research how to actually write a novel. And in so doing, I realized there were a lot of things that I left out, neglected, and simply didn't know. But it worked out because earnestly reading the novel, reading the first version of the novel, it would not become readily apparent that I had not included these aspects, because you're just reading a good book. But in any case, when I went back and I did the research, it took me a couple of years to research and revise the novel. Ergo, the current title, revised edition, Family Ties Thicker Than Blood. What prompted me to write? I was previously self-employed. I owned a couple of businesses, and this part's a little difficult for me. In 2001, I suffered a severe accident, and it resulted with me being in a coma for 7 months. The injuries were so extensive that I required 8+ years of rehabilitative therapy and all the things that doctors put you through. In actuality, the doctors have said that I will be in a perpetual state of rehabilitation for the rest of my life. I'm tasked with a stutter, an obvious limp, or I call it a waddle, and other issues with which I contend on a daily basis. But nonetheless, I'm thankful for life, and I do my best to live my life as normally as possible. With that being said, initially in 2019 or in 2020, I had this nagging urge to write, and I didn't know what it was. This idea, it kept coming into my mind, and I went from working. I had two companies. I went from working 140, 150 hours a week to crickets, and it honestly, was very hard on my psyche, So this idea would not go away. So I simply sat down at the computer one day. I sat at the computer. I opened a Word document, and I just started typing. You know, a lot of people say, you know, they read the book and they're thinking it was all mapped out, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. In actuality, I just wrote what I wrote to quieten the noises inside my head. So it took me about 1.5 to 2 years to script the first novel. Again, it was just a matter of me sitting down at the computer every day and typing what came. Not until I researched how to write a novel did I come to understand that according to standard, you're supposed to map out every detail of every aspect of the novel, including the characters, the names, descriptions, backstory, and so on and so forth. But that's not how it came. It just came to me, I mean, organically. Every day I just sat at the computer and I'd say, okay, Lord, here I am. What do you have for me? And I just, you know, went back to that Word document and typed what came. So anyway, it took me about 1.5 to 2 years to finish the novel, but I didn't know what I had done. I didn't know what it was. I had never intended to write a novel. So I just filed it away on the computer. And, you know, fast forward, wow, 8 years. 8 years later, in the interim, I had met, you know, my now wife. Her name is Sandra. We had gone to Massachusetts on a moment's notice, and we intended to be there for 2 weeks. In actuality, we stayed there for a little more than 2 months. So in the time that we were there, she comes to me one day and she says, "I'm bored." I'm like, and I said, "Okay." And she said, you know, the topic came up and she reminded me that I had written a book. And I said, I don't even, my computer hard drive had crashed a couple of times. So I didn't even know where the information was. But to long story short, I contacted the gentleman back in Jacksonville. He's the owner of the computer shop where all the work is done on my computer. And I asked him, I said, you know, if my hard drive crashed, how do I retrieve the information? And he said, you don't. Once the hard drive crashes, the information is, you know, is gone. But he had done me a favor, a huge favor. And he backed up everything from the 3 hard drives that had crashed, and he put them into a file on my computer, which I was so thankful. So I went and I found the information. I copied it to a flash drive, and I gave it to her. And she comes back a few days later and she said, you got to do something with this. And I said, do something with what? She said, the manuscript, it's very good. So I was like, you know, in no position to assess the quality of the manuscript. I just written it. So anyway, we came back from Massachusetts. I did not want the novel as it was to speak of my life now. So I didn't change anything. I just went back and added, I term it, I added meat to the bones. So I finished the novel, and you know, 1 year, 2 years later, it's published. And again, I didn't know what I was doing. So once I researched how to write a novel, I went back and I revised it. So the revised edition came out last year, actually, April or May of last year, of 2022. It's more, I feel in my heart that it's more complete. It tells the full story, and you know, basically filled in some blanks that I had left in the first edition of the novel. But the novel, the revised edition, Family Ties Thicker Than Blood, is it's out now. It's available on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Goodreads.com, all the major platforms. And you can also order it directly from me. If you want it signed, I would be more than happy to do that. You can access me and all things BG Howard by going to www.author bghoward.com. That's where you find me and all things me, information about myself and the other novels. I have another novel, Family Ties 2, Blood Covenant, that I'm working on. I think I just finished the editing. I'm hopefully going to be able to launch that one the first week of December. So in a couple of months. But the story, Willie LeBeau is a young man from South Georgia. He relocates to New York City as an aspiring model / actor. You know, the things that people go to New York to do. By accident, he saves the life of a gentleman by the name of Oswald Jenkins, who coincidentally happens to be a key figure of an organized crime family. But you can't be in organized crime with a name like Oswald. So on the streets, his name is Oz. So Willie saves Oz's life, and Oz kind of adopts him, so to speak, takes him under his wing, teaches him the ropes. Willie has had some experience on the streets, but he got out of it because there was a situation, I don't want to tell the story, but there was a situation with his best friend. And that kind of, it was a bad situation. So that kind of prompted him to get out of the game. But in New York, again, he accidentally saves the life of Oswald Jenkins, or Oz, and Oz takes him under his wing. That doesn't fit too well with a gentleman by the name of Amp, or Anthony. Amp is the previous second in command, and Willie's moving into position kind of pushes him to the side. So with that, Amp is upset, obviously, and he teams up with another former protege by the name of Jerome. So Amp and Jerome team up and hatch this plan to take over Oz's territory. In the meantime, Willie is pretty much running things, so that puts him in direct opposition with Amp and Jerome. Things are a little further complicated when Willie starts dating NYPD officer Ernestina Lady. That adds a big complication to things. So Willie is an aspiring actor / model. He can't let Oz know this because Oz does not believe that models, actors are real people. In fact, his term is that they are unrealistic people who live unrealistic lives with unrealistic expectations. So that has to be a secret that Willie keeps from Oz, his mentor. But by the same token, his true art of living, he cannot disclose to Officer Lady because she's a police officer. And so that's the dynamic of the background of the story. So Willie has to keep secrets. Basically, his entire life is a secret. He encounters an elderly couple in New York by the name of Ed and Eunice, who happen to be from the South. Ed is from South Carolina, and Eunice is from a place not too far from where originally Willie hails, in South Georgia. So Ed and Eunice, they actually are from the South, but they meet in New York years before, and they've been married for 30 years. They have kids. They're all grown and out the house, but two of them, one by the name of he's Ed Jr., but they just call him Pumpkin for short. And then there's also their daughter, Cherish. She lives in New York. She lives in California, but she seems to find her way back to New York on every occasion. So that's another dynamic that explores the paths of the family. And ergo the name of the title, Family Ties. So it deals with the coming of age of children, young adults in life, the challenges that they undergo while wrestling with the dynamics of relationships, everything concerning relationships from business to friendships to family to romantic interests. And speaking of romantic interests, one of the challenges for Willie is that he's a young man from South Georgia, and he has, how do we say this politely, a number of experiences, romantic experiences. One in the form of Natasha, his neighbor, who happens to be living with a man, but that does not deter her from finding her way to Willie's door. So it's a really interesting story. A lot of facets of life and living life. It involves what I consider it's a realistic take on it's a realistic take on a fictitious narrative that describes or defines the process of living life. I mean, the growing up, the maturing, the experiences that people have. One of those being relationships, concerning the emotional aspect. But I think it's a very, very interesting take on life in general, and basically.
Okay, BG Howard, you've got 1 minute left.
Thank you, sir. But the challenges that we all endure. So again, it's people ask me, there are people who know me, though in the accident, as a result of the accident, I lost my memory. But my sister-in-law, she happens to be from New York. She's now a professor in California, but she read the novel and she said to me, "Are you sure you lost your memory? Because reading this book was like taking a tour of New York City." So it's a challenge because I don't remember living in New York. Interesting because some of the stuff that I guess subliminally, it came back to me. But at any rate, it's a very, very interesting read. Again, a realistic take on a fictitious story. And I think, everybody who's read it finds it very interesting. And I think you'll do the same. So reach out to me, www.authorbghoward.com. And I have to mention in closing, the original version, Family Ties Thicker Than Blood, was awarded I was awarded best fiction, best new author, best new author. And then the revised edition, right now I received a nomination, yay, from the Distinguished Authors Guild. And right now I'm promoting that. We have the award ceremony is slated for November the 8th in Las Vegas. So Sandra and I have to make a trip to Las Vegas relatively soon. And you can support me by going to my website, contacting me directly. My email address, bg@authorbghoward.com. And if you'd like to have a signed copy of the novel, you contact me via email or on my website, and we'll make it happen. But again, I'd like to thank Mr. Sankofa and all my fellow authors again for the opportunity, and it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Also, BG Howard, put the link to your website in the Zoom chat as well, please. Right. I'm now going to go on to the next speaker. It's Emmanuel Amevoir. He's not author, but he is a bookseller. I'm sure some of you on the Zoom call, particularly if you live in England and you go to events, you'll probably have seen his face if you don't already know who I'm talking about. But Emmanuel, I'm going to ask you to come onto the platform now. Just briefly introduce yourself, tell us where you're based, and tell us a little bit more depth about what you do. So Emmanuel, welcome to the Black Book Show.
Thank you, brother Makonnen. I'm so pleased to be on your show. My name, as you mentioned, is Emmanuel Amevoir, and I have been living in the UK for the past 40 years or so, where I schooled and trained as a chartered certified accountant. Then I stumbled into the book trade, and for the past 20, 30 years, I've been involved in the book trade. I also practice with a firm of chartered certified accountants in Barking in East London called Roxons and Co. I do some consultancy work there, but my main job, run a partnership in the holistic health industry with a company called Pimpamsi Holistics. We've got 5 shops across London, and I'm based in the Housden bookshop, a Housden branch, where in addition to the health products, we also have a book session, and we've got Makonnen's books there. We are based in 45 Craven Park Road, Housden, London, NW10 8SE. I also have a site, a website that sells books, and it's called Black Books, www.blackhistorybooks.uk. Note, there's no .co, it's just www.blackhistorybooks.uk. And as Makonnen said, I do a lot of events, and you might realize that where I'm speaking from is a bit dark because I'm in my car. I just come from an event. Those of you who are in the conscious community in London might know about one brother, Doggy. He passed away unexpectedly a few years ago, and we had an anniversary celebration of his life this evening. And in addition to all these, I do promotions as well. And currently, I'll be bringing Muta Baruka, who is an exceptionally highly intelligent poet based in Jamaica. He'll be doing a tour of the UK, and we have a show with him on the 12th of November this year at Lambeth Town Hall. And if you are interested in attending, you can go to Eventbrite, and all you do is just Google Muta Baruka, and you get the information there. I've been, like I said, in the book trade for close to 30 years. I used to run a center in East London called Centerprise, and we were in literature development, and we used to train people to develop their creative writing skills. That is where I developed interest in books. I've not written anything yet, but watch out, there's certainly something in the pipeline. So in short, this is who I am. And if you are interested in our work, you can visit us at 45 Craven Park Road, where we have our shop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Please do put your details in the Zoom chat, or if you want me to do it, let me know, because I know you're on the road.
Yeah, if you can do it for me, that would be very helpful. I think you have all the information.
Yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, I'm gonna put Emmanuel's details in the Zoom chat in case you want to reach out to him, in case you're interested in having your book stocked by him. And yeah, check out the shop in Pamsey. He's in the Housden branch, but there are other branches. Emmanuel, they do actually stock copies of my book, the particular branch that he's in anyway. The Rise of Rastafari, How to Market and Sell Your Book, Life in Gambia, and they will be stocking my new book, Experiences of Living Across Africa, in the future as well. But again, I'll be putting the details in the Zoom chat. Right, I'm now going to go on to the next speaker. It's Deanne Heron. So Deanne Heron, she's featured on the Black Book Show, Virtual Book Tour, and the Black Books radio show and podcast previously. So welcome back onto the platform. Deanne, just start by introducing yourself, tell us where you're based, and then go on to talk about your books.
Okay, thank you, Makonnen. I hope you can hear and see me okay. Yeah, my name is Deanne Heron, and I'm joining you from Manchester, Northern England. Prior to COVID-19, I did many things. I'm a qualified counsellor, cognitive behavioural therapist, trainer, all kinds of things. I used to present a weekly African Caribbean news and music programme on 2 of our local radio stations. And I love Black history and writing. They're my first love. I was born in Kingston, the capital of Jamaica, where my mother was living at the time, but my family are from the parish of Portland on the northeast coast of Jamaica, and it's famous for the Blue Mountains and Blue Mountain coffee. Now, my mother left me with my grandmother in Portland when I was 3 because she was given the opportunity to come to England. And in the late 60s, I joined my mother, stepfather, and 3 siblings here in Manchester. And I was only 9 years old. Now, I encountered racism for the first time at primary school because of my strong Jamaican accent, which I made great effort to quickly lose in order to fit in. My primary school teacher, Mr. Lawrence, was one of my greatest inspirations. He used to read poetry to us at the end of the school day. Mr. Lawrence reminded me of being read to by my cousin sitting on my aunt's veranda in Jamaica. And those were in the days, you know, before television, when we only had the radio to listen to. And we used to listen to a lovely lady called Louise Bennett Coverley. And she, you know, does presentations in patois and patois poems and things like that. And I didn't realize then just how much of an influence Miss Lou, as she's known in Jamaica affectionately, and how much of an influence she'd have on me today. Now, Mr. Lawrence's love of poetry sparked my own interest in poetry and writing in general. And I found writing poetry an escape and a very therapeutic way to cope with racism and the harsh life I experienced in Britain on my arrival. And today I do daily poetic journaling, which I call my therapeutic poetic processing. Now, I have had 4 volumes of poetry called Contemplation published to date, and that's volume 1. I hope you can see it, volume 1 of Contemplation, and volume 2. As I said, there are 4, but I know I'm short of time, so I won't show them all to you. The last 2 volumes are called Contemplation, the COVID era, and basically it's me writing poetry to help me to make sense of these confusing times that we're going through. Now, what I particularly enjoyed as a child was family time, when my mom and her friends and family would all get together, and someone would bring the chicken, someone would bring the rice, the fish, and we'd just share Caribbean food, laugh and listen to music. And I love listening to Jamaican patois and the unique Caribbean sense of humor. And somebody would always argue and fall out, but they were always there for each other, no matter what happened. If somebody had a problem, there was always somebody there for them to go and talk to. And unfortunately, that seems to have gone. Now, I decided I wanted to capture these precious memories for future generations, the lovely memories I had when I came here of being frightened to death of seeing smoke coming out the chimneys and thinking the houses are on fire, which a lot of people have said, and all those things, you know, discovering snow, actually walking on snow for the first time. So for many years, I've been in a partner, and I don't know if many of you are familiar with that term. It's a savings club, which was a pivotal part of the Caribbean community when I came here, similar to today's credit union in Britain. And in some countries, it's called box hand, susu, lots of different names. And it was brought from the Caribbean by migrants after the Second World War. Now, the partner enables people to save, to buy large items such as houses, cars, or to get married and send money back home to their families, you know, to their children, because a lot of people weren't allowed to open bank accounts, but that's another story. Now, the person who managed the partner was usually a woman, and she was the focal point, the pivotal point in the community. And that was before the days of mobile phones and when most people didn't even have house phones. So if anything was happening, you tell the partner lady, somebody getting married, somebody had died, somebody having a baby, you tell the partner lady and she'd pass it on to everyone else. Now, my short humorous stories, which I wrote about my Jamaican culture, called Partner Money Stories, as I said, because I used to be in the partner and I felt the partner was a pivotal part of the community. And that's volume 1. And that is where I used to play in Jamaica as a little girl. My grandma used to take me to the beach and I used to play there. So I took a photograph when I went on holiday in Jamaica and used that for the cover of volume 1. And that one is volume 2 of Partner Money Stories. And I'm currently writing volume 3 because to my surprise, everybody who's read them has said, oh my goodness, no, you need to write some more. I love them. I couldn't stop laughing, and they reminded me of so many things. And I thought, oh, all right then, okay. So those are my short humorous stories, Partner Money Stories. And they were published for a couple of years, actually. Before they were published, the Jamaica Observer, the Jamaica Sunday Observer, used to publish my stories every Sunday. Let me see. Right, I've got to make sure I'm quick. Yeah, I've also had this huge novel, which you could knock somebody out with, called the Mandari Chronicles, published. And again, every time people see that, they say, oh my goodness, how on earth did you write that? And then when they read the story, they say, where on earth did you get all that from? Well, basically, when the films Harry Potter and all of that came out and people were talking about elves and dwarves and whatever, it just got my overactive brain thinking. And then I started having these weird dreams where I was taken back in time and I was shown the creation of humanity, that it wasn't just humans. There were actually 3 races on planet Earth originally. And as I woke up in the middle of the night, I'd jot things down. And then over, I think about 3 or 4 years, I wrote the Mandari Chronicles and then decided that I had to get it published. And as I said, it's just my dreams about humanity and what humanity were really about, why they were created and what's happened. And I think scientists say now that we only use we've lost the use of 80% of our brains. I think we only use 20%. And I was told that that was because initially we didn't have a spoken language. We were telepaths and we could transport ourselves wherever we wanted to, but God had to shut all of that off, when we started fighting and being envious of each other. Now, all my books, I have a website. You can find me on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page called Partner Money Stories, and partner is spelled P-A-R-D-N-E-R, Partner Money Stories by Deanne Heron. I'm also on Instagram and I have a website. So it's all the W's, partnermoneystories.co.uk. So if you want to buy my books, you can go to my website and get signed copies, or you can go to Amazon where you can get all my books, and you can also get a Kindle version of the Mandari Chronicles. Now, I can leave it there, Makonnen, or I can share a short poem for you if you've got a minute, but I know it's 5:02. Do you want me to just share this poem, which shouldn't be too long?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I've written a poem called The Partner, and there are 2 versions. There's an English version and there's a Jamaican patois version, but I'll read the English version. Okay, The Partner. For decades, the pennies changed hands and turned into pounds, because to pay rent and buy food, there was never enough to go around. They worked hard to throw 1 hand, 2 hands, or maybe 3, to get the draw for Granny's new teeth and the children's school fee. Paying the partner that precious generation connecting thread was safer than using the money to prop up the old mattress of your sunken bed. Papa married Mama because his partner draw meant he could afford the ring. With no parental support or bank account, the partner was the only thing. Today, the partner is still going strong, I hear, just with a different face. No more counting money on the kitchen table because it's in a different place. The modern partner comes now in a completely different guise of standing orders and technology, because we've been stung and got wise that so much money to a poor man can be a great temptation to hop on a plane heading for the sun and take a permanent vacation. Okay, thank you, Makonnen. I'm going to put all my details in the chat, so I will leave it there and just give you time to wrap up because it's nearly 10 o'clock, isn't it?
Okay, thank you very much. That was Deanne Heron. So just before I conclude, this is the Black Book Show in collaboration with Auntie Jean's African Culture Market. Auntie Jean, I'm just going to hand it over to you, just if you've got any final words before we come back to me, just to close the Black Book Show. So Auntie Jean, if you're there. Okay, I'm just going to wrap it up. I know she was also at the event Emmanuel was speaking about earlier, the tribute event for brother Dougie. So she may just not have got back in time. So I will just conclude by saying thanks to all the authors and contributors that have participated on this particular episode of the Black Book Show. I hope the attendance members, you've enjoyed the show, and just a reminder of the Black Book Show virtual book tour next month in October. It will be taking place on Sunday the 22nd of October, so it won't be on the last Sunday of October, it'll be on the 22nd instead. Those who are on my mailing list, you will get an email sent to you, where you can find out more information about that particular show. As well, please also feel free to subscribe to the Black Book Show Facebook group. If you go on Facebook and just put in the Black Book Show, that is the best place to be kept up to date with information regarding the Black Book Show, the virtual book tours, but also for the radio shows and the podcast. So the Black Book, the radio shows, I have a radio show on Luton Urban Radio every other Monday and a radio show on Galaxy Radio every other Saturday, where I interview authors of African heritage about their books. So this is the virtual book tour. On the radio shows, that's where I do an interview to go a bit more in depth about the author and the book that they've written. And also the Black Book Show podcast, which is available on the website blackbookshows.com. That basically is the authors that have been interviewed on the radio shows. The interviews also go on the podcast, so they can be accessed on demand. But again, on Facebook, if you join the Facebook group, the Black Book Shows, all the information, about these events and podcasts, they're all always posted. So that's probably the best place to go to keep up to date regarding the Black Book Show. If you are an author who would like to feature on the Black Book Show, virtual book tour, radio show, or podcast, feel free to contact me. The email address is info@blackbookshows.com. I'm just going to actually put my email address in the Zoom chat just before we close as well. So I'm just putting it in now, info@blackbookshows.com. If you are interested in sponsoring the Black Book Shows as well, feel free to reach out to me, or if you would like to advertise, particular business service that you have. I just see a question in the Zoom chat: when are you on Galaxy? So my show on Galaxy Radio is every other Saturday between 6 and 8 p.m. UK time. So this Saturday I will be on Galaxy. And then every other Saturday, I normally have my show there. Right, so it's 10 o'clock now, so, this is the conclusion of the Black Book Show. I would just like to say thanks everyone for joining, and good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are, your time zone. But this is just a conclusion to say that, this is the end of the Black Book Show, and, thanks for joining, and goodbye, everyone.
Bye.